Okay.
Act like the camera's not there.
Yeah, I was wondering what you know about Alexander the Great.
Well, he was great for a reason, is because he was so ambitious, you know?
And he died hecka young, right?
Oh yeah, he died. Definitely.
He died.
I think he died from some fever, maybe? I don't know.
In India, when he was
So what
in
happened
India.
was, no, he wasn't in India when he
Indian.
died.
I need leftovers.
So
Oh,
Alexander
no.
the Great was born in Macedonia to Philip, King Philip. And he was also trained
Philip
under...
Thomas or
Not Philip Thomas.
He was born in Macedonia to King Philip.
To King Philip. Is it Philip II? I think
So
it's
he was a
Philip II.
ruler. So he was born into a royal family?
Yes.
Okay.
And even though he was born in Macedonia, he was Greek. Because back then, it was all Greek run, you know. So he was a Greek, but born technically in Macedonia. And, you know, he was trained under... I think one of his teachers was Aristotle himself, actually.
Plato?
No, not Plato. Aristotle.
Really?
Yeah. So, you know, Alexander wanted to be, you know, mightiest ruler. So he started conquering, you know, when he got his power and he's, you know, because Philip was assassinated. His
Oh,
father
so then
was
he took
assassinated.
over.
Yeah, he
Oh,
took
so
over.
he was thrown into the...
So he said,
He
okay.
assassinated.
And you know,
Philip.
back in those days, the Greeks' #1 enemy were the Persians. So his first target, the Persians, you know. So he marched in, and there were so many wars. I think one of the most famous wars was Gaugamela War. It was a really big, famous war. And then he marched in on Babylon, you know, the ancient city of Babylon. Took over Babylon, down with the Persians. And he said, you know, Alexander was like, this is not enough. I need to conquer the world.
Right.
So he kept going east. So he'd go further east into, you know, Afghanistan, into Tajikistan, Uzbekistan. And then, you know, he hit the Pamirs.
Who was fighting for him? The
His
Greek
soldiers. Yeah. And this is what's so interesting about Alexander, is that he wanted to conquer so much, right? But how do you manage all that? So as he's conquering, he's leaving groups of soldiers and
Stay
people
there.
to stay there and to rule. What made it interesting was that, you know, instead of imposing everything on them, he let the people rule themselves with the Greek overlords, right? And not only would that help manage all the places that he's conquering, but also it helped to bring Greek culture to these areas. So it's funny. You will
See that today?
you will go to Afghanistan, right? And you'll see like, because back in those days, Afghanistan, this is long before Islam, you know, Afghanistan was Buddhist, right? You know, like the Bamiyan Buddhas. Several years, not like a decade ago, the Taliban blew up the large Buddhas, this ancient Buddhas. It was a tragedy for world history. But Afghanistan was Buddhist. But you look at the Buddha, the style of the statuary that they have there, and you can see traces of Greek sculpture in the Buddha. It's like an Indian and Greek culture mixed together. This was called the Gandharan culture. But this is long after Alexander. Anyway, so Alexander kept going further and further east, and then he hit the Pamirs. So the Pamirs is a mountain range that separates Tajikistan and China, right? And also he hit Hindu Kush,
Is that like on the west side of China?
the western side of China, yeah.
Into the Silk Road?
Well, no, the Silk Road went all the way from Xi'an, China, all the way as far as Venice. And it find its way through but so he hit the Pamirs, and then further south, the Hindu Kush. Hindu Kush is another mountain range. So he can't go further because, you know, it's out of his league. His army has no idea how to get over these massive mountains, you know. The roof of the world is what they call it. So he had no choice. He had no choice but to go south. And where do you go when you go south? India. So he kept pushing and pushing and pushing. He finally gets to India, and he meets one of the most famous Indian emperors of all time. You know who it is, the Angkor?
Porus? No. Akbar? I don't know.
No, that's Akbar. The Mughals are 16th
Are
century.
you verifying this?
I'm reading it.
Chandragupta,
Chandragupta
the Mauryans. Yeah. And it was Chandragupta that learned from interacting with Alexander how to create and develop his own empire in central and southern India.
So he did?
Yeah, the Mauryan
Did that
Empire.
conflict with what Alexander was conquering though?
Well, this is the thing. Alexander, you know, this is over so many years, you know. He finally get to India. It's a completely different world from Greece, you know. It's like
Right.
subtropical and everything. And his
They love
soldiers are
bloodshed.
so tired. his soldiers were so tired of it. You know, like, oh, we're so done with the fighting. And there was a whole bunch of other drama. And finally, you know, it's like, okay, because...
Were you there?
Totally. Yeah, me and my time machine. No, so they turned around. Alexander went back to Babylon. And then he caught illness and he died there in Babylon. But he left a big trail from Greece all the way to India of Greek culture and Greek influence, and so it's really interesting that
Yeah, see, he fought King Porus.
You fought him.
he fought many people.
Impressive.